Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director Event Programming at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Rasika Narang. She is the Chief Growth Officer at Strawberry Frog. Hey, Rasika, how are you?
Hey Lisa, great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. I'm excited. Strawberry Frog. That's like it's so funny when I envision, it's when I first started hearing the name Strawberry Frog, I was like thinking like kids' clothing or something. You know what I mean? Like it just has that you expect a bright colored something
Yeah,
little cheap t-shirt or something. So it's a fun name.
it's totally a fun name, and I have to tell you, it's always a great conversation starter. Anywhere I go, people always ask me, "What is the name all about?" And there's a whole story behind that too, actually, if I can share for a second. Yeah, so the name is actually there's a real frog named Strawberry Frog, deep in the Amazon, a very poisonous frog that's tiny. And
Uh,
it's really an inspiration for us to be more of that nimble, agile, innovative firm, and sort of the antithesis of what you typically experience for a long time in this sector with, slower and more kind of bureaucratic firms and agencies. So our CEO, Scott Goodson, named it Strawberry Frog to really embody that spirit of innovation and sort of nimbleness. And I love it for that reason, because it's very much feels like that rebel that, I
hmm?
feel like sometimes I am through my career and my life.
A little bit of a rebel. Well, that's awesome. I hope you're not poisonous, but other than that,
Gotta
I
watch out, right?
poisonous to the competition.
Yes, exactly.
Well, but, I mean, you guys are obviously doing something right. You were recognized as a purpose-led agency of the year. So that's pretty impressive. Obviously it's, you guys are leaders in doing that and what your ads are doing, you really are leading with more purposeful content. And that's really what is sort of getting the attention, especially of younger generations, but of people in general. So that is awesome work. But I want to switch it over to you.
Yeah,
And how are you purposeful? Like, what do you, in your daily life,
yeah.
how do you try to bring in small ways into your world, in larger ways, whatever that may be, but sort of live more purpose-led?
Yeah, being purpose-led, I guess it means, for me, it means a couple of things. One is really understanding your why, and then the understanding the values you live by. And that's what I try to do, is have that defined and really have that guide me through, day to day and my decisions and my teams that I lead. And for me, since I was a little girl, I always loved building things,
Mm,
and building and creating things from scratch has always excited me, even through my career journey. When I think about moments that I feel like I'm thriving and really feeling fulfilled, is like when I have created something from scratch. And that creator maker mindset is what I think it really is sort of like my why, really. So,
mhm.
creativity with impact is what I've been seeking and kind of try to bring. And I'm very entrepreneurial. I think that's one of the values that I sort of hold, having the courage to figure it out, to try new different things, being sort of creative in your problem solving. I really believe ideas can come from anywhere, and no idea is a small idea. I try to get my kids to practice that in their day to day. And just, I think those pieces is what I sort of try to bring to my teams, giving them the courage to try something new, to be experimental. And really, I think one of the things that spoke to me a lot about Strawberry Frog was our purpose, which is creativity for good.
Mm.
And really, we've done that for Northwell Health. We've had a movement called Raise Health for Northwell Health, which has been all about healthcare inequity. How do you do away with that? The On Up movement for SunTrust that we did, which was about taking away financial insecurity and helping Americans develop financial confidence. And now we're working with the Ad Council on a project around youth awareness of drug overdose. Again, very near to my heart, because I have a teenage daughter now, so very sort of meaningful. So being able to combine that creativity with an impact that it has, whether it's for clients or purpose, larger societal purpose, is what sort of drives me forward.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a nice thing to drive you, and like when you say purposeful, even in, because obviously those initiatives are wonderful and they're in much more larger scale than maybe your world. Is there anything that you try to do within your community or within your family even, because that can be just as much, every little thing can mean so
Yeah.
much. Is there
Yeah.
anything that touches closer to home?
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved from a, community standpoint with the AMA. I'm on the board of the AMA, and we try to sort of, having diversity within that group is something we're looking at. I'm also a mentor of an organization called Digital Undivided, which is all about empowering women to close the entrepreneurship gap. So those are some of the ways, I try to find purpose in my day to day. I
Hmm?
guess my kids, it's really about developing a way of thinking for them more than anything at this point, and making them, putting them in these situations which let them explore their own inner potential.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's sort of how I'm trying to bring it in professional and personal life.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you have a daughter going into becoming a teenager, or is she already a
Yeah,
teen?
I'm into high school now. Yes.
High school. So think of you when you were that age. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and this would be the advice, like, because your daughter is feeling a lot of the things you felt when you were
Right.
just going into high school. And now you know things, I would think, that maybe you didn't know back then. What would be the one thing you would want to tell young Rasika or your daughter?
Yeah.
Again, because it's different worlds now, so that it may be a little different just in terms of the time wise. But what advice would you have wanted to hear that also might be helpful to your daughter as well?
Oh my God, what a great question. That's very deep for sure, Lisa. I mean, I think again, I grew up at a different time in a different culture, in a different country, actually. I grew up in India. And my parents were very forward thinking. I was never told not to do something. In fact, I might be less of a risk taker than my mom was, I would say in some ways, which is probably why I'm so entrepreneurial. So I mean, I think the thing that I would say is, just own your voice and own your place in the room. I think that took me a while to kind of learn and earn, along the way. It was also a different time. I do find the generations and, the youth today just has so much more knowledge and confidence and I feel like ever did back then. So I think it's really being able to do that. And I think the other thing I would say to her is like really discovering your passion, which I think she has actually, fortunately. Now, of course, she's going to explore it through her life and her career to see if it truly is that. But I think um, finding your sort of who and what drives you early, I think is sort of one of the things which I think can lead to more life success in not the typical ways that people think, but more like internal fulfillment.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, going back to again, when you're finding your passions, like if you think back when college, when you first started,
Yeah.
you've been predominantly on the agency side, though I believe, worked at a tech company
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
for a bit. But when you were graduating and finding your passion, or and I'm still, I mean, for me, yes, I knew basically what I wanted to do, to be honest. But it's definitely evolved, and I'm just
Right.
curious, what was your passion then, or what were you thinking? And then as you've gone through your path, how has it evolved to where you are today?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and interestingly, like again, my college education was in economics. So where I was growing up, when I was growing up, my peer group was doing MBAs in finance, but I always had this inner desire for creativity. And I drew and I painted and did all those things, but I never grew up thinking that could be like a career path necessarily. But one of the reasons I actually moved to New York was to go to design school. So I finished my bachelor's in India and I told my parents, I want to go to New York and I want to explore creativity. And, a lot of it was inspired by the wonderful advertising I saw in India. A lot of that was, just what kind of, I think the visions and impressions of that stayed with me and I wanted to explore it. So that's when I came here actually. And somewhere in my brain, I think what I wanted was a combination of the art and science that marketing really is, and even my essay getting into FIT was all about this ambidextrous mind, which, takes that economics and business side, but also brings in creativity into it. So it's exciting to see that the industry is fully adopting that now. Yeah, so I think that's I kind of am where I envision. Like I think I wanted to be in a dynamic city like New York and in the field of creativity, in the business of creativity, which is what we're really in. So I love that. And I think the journey for me has really been about sort of putting myself in getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Like if I reflect back on my journey, like I always took steps and made sort of moves being in things that I had never done before. And that's what excites me, you know. So moving from India, coming here, starting a whole new life, moving from like, you know, one field of study to another. I actually started my career as an art director in the business. So, you know, on the design creative side. And I worked closely with the president of the company and moved, you know, so I really was impressed by her business thinking and moved more into client leadership. Within client leadership, I took on roles which were challenging, you know, both in terms of growing the business, turning around the business, or, you know, motivating teams to actually win an award, you know, winning an award, winning a can for a chemical industry. We managed to do that. So, you know, putting myself in these places and where unexpected things could happen and would happen is what sort of gave me this sort of drive and excitement always. And that's kind of what I think brought me here to Strawberry Frog as well, because I think we're a founder-led company and our CEO is an entrepreneur. The company is very much entrepreneurial. So that permission to try different things, the permission to like do different things is always there. I mean, even as a company, we've evolved for 25 years. This year's actually our 25th anniversary, and we've always been about challenging status quo. Thank you. And, you know, as the business and marketing has evolved, we've evolved our offerings as well. So we do not only, you know, sort of marketing and communications, but we have a innovation and transformation studio, which lets our clients explore different products and services that they can bring to market. We also have an AI-led agency, which does content creation and all kinds of applications of AI, just not just generative AI. So I love this sort of ability to explore and seek and just go different places.
Well, I mean, even just moving to another country, you know, and to go to school, you're still young. And, you know, I
Not
mean,
that young, but thank you.
you're still young now, and we're still young in college. And, but going, like, I mean, sometimes it's easier when you say you're going to a school because you automatically put in a situation where you're going to meet other people. So sometimes
Yeah.
that is the way to venture, whether it be across country to another country, whatever it may be. But I think, and you talked about it being in New York, where there's an energy. I just remember when I first moved to New York in my early 20s. I had never been here, and I just felt alive. There was an energy
Yeah.
like you could do anything. So did that help? Like, you know, because you said you were looking for more, you liked new things, or how scary was it? Like, what was the mix when you first got here?
Yeah, I think it must have to do with being in your 20s when, you know, I felt like anything was possible. You know, I mean, I do to a certain extent even now, but I think you have to work in a different way at it now. So absolutely the energy of New York and, you know, the people that I met, the people that I sort of learned from throughout my career, like it just was an amazing, amazing experience. I was at Ogilvy for a long time where there was, you know, again, all kinds of disciplines and just the kind of people I met was like so energizing. And then moving from that into Viant, which is more of a, you know, tech programmatic software company, a whole other sort of point of view of our industry. And then now it's Strawberry Frog. It's just the kinds of people you meet, just the diversity of New York has always been really, really energizing.
Yep, no, I completely agree. Well, in talking about diversity in the sense of
Yeah.
bringing it into the organization, I know we hear a lot about DEI and everyone, you know, it's sometimes spoken in a way that maybe is lip service, but I
Yeah.
think organizations who are genuinely trying to create that within their company. How are you doing that at Strawberry Frog?
Yeah, and you know, diversity to me, the number one thing I think people go to is like age, gender, ethnicity, right? And of course, it's all of that. But for me, it's always about really diversity of thought, action, and perspectives. And that's really how we approach it at Strawberry Frog. How do you have a mix of people, an inclusive team that brings different perspectives and different viewpoints to solving a client problem? You know, so we have structured programs where we obviously, from a hiring perspective, look at that, you know, in terms of what kind of discipline are people coming from, the age, gender, ethnicity, all those pieces. It's a consideration in our hiring process. It's in how we build our teams for client problem solving. We also have a model where we often bring, you know, sort of partners from the outside into a certain initiative, depending on what the client need is, which also allows us to come up with more innovative solutions. And then we have internal programs like employee, you know, resource groups and committees that actually are always looking for that way of making sure we recognize all kinds of different, I guess, areas that people care about. And then both our team and our leadership team, it's something that we're also very mindful of. The one thing I will say, our founder is, there's co-founders actually. They're a husband and wife team, Scott and Karen, and we have a female founder, and there's not many of those in our industry, which I was shocked to hear about. So I think it just begins from the top in that sense, where there's that partnership and the diversity is built very much from the top into the leadership and into the organization.
Yeah, well, so and you're talking about having a woman founder, a
Yeah.
co-founder, um, but and when you were first starting out, industry was a little different, and
Yeah.
now today, when a woman is starting out, a young woman, and she wants to be you, she wants to rise in the ranks because you have had different, you
Right.
stayed on a certain path, but you went creative, you went, in doing design, then you getting over to business. And so you have all of these elements you're bringing to the table, which ultimately I'm assuming really suits you well, it serves you well within your position now.
Yeah.
Um, that girl just graduating or just maybe getting started. How does she do that? That woman, how does she, what's the advice you would give her to rise in the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like not being afraid to ask, right? I mean, I will tell you, so my first job, my first review, I think it was a pretty bad review actually, which I'm like shocked about now when I reflect on it. It was sort of like basically being told I wanted to make a switch into the business side, and I was kind of being told no. And I think I took that upon myself to make the no a yes, and I always seeked out ways of doing that, ways of doing the unexpected thing. So I think my advice would be don't take no for an answer, ask for a chance and just make it happen, I think essentially is what you do, and I think that experience to me, I think it was almost intentional. She was trying to jolt me into action, and I think it's been one of the most empowering, I think, moments of my life where I was like, well, nobody defines where I sort of go or what I do. I am going to go places that I, want to seek to explore. So I think my advice would be just go with your gut and ask, and you'll be surprised, and reach out. I don't think I did enough of that early on in my career. I think there's a lot more openness now. I mean, you see it on LinkedIn, you see it everywhere. There's so many ways to connect with people, all levels, and people are very willing to help. I don't think I took that enough early on in my career. So I would encourage people to like just ask and reach out, and
Yeah.
you will get a chance.
I totally agree. But I'm curious, where did that voice come from? That, at a young age, not
Yeah.
taking no. Where, like, is it from your mom? I mean, you said your mom takes more, chances than you. So maybe she's more daring, but like, it's just, that's something sometimes that to get that kind of strength, it evolves sometimes. So it's not necessarily someone in their young, in their early 20s, but
Yeah.
it's like, did you have that or were you afraid still? And then, but just saying no, or like, what was the mindset there?
Yeah, no, I think my early career, I was very much, a follower and, very much sort of grew up in like it's more of a hierarchical way of working, and the world doesn't work that way anymore. It's very much, I think, again, the generational differences right now are so, it's totally different. People, I don't think are afraid to ask as much. So I had to find that confidence. I had to develop it. I had to find, kind of, take a couple of chances, I think. And then sort of that muscle memory became, that's what happened then.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't say I was born into my career like that. I think it is something you have to learn. It is something you have to, I think putting yourself in those situations is what I would encourage people to do. It's the only way you build that dexterity. And
yeah,
that's one of the things I've done is like put myself in places that I I think I knew I wanted, but I just didn't have the courage. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it and then let it go and see what happens. And first time maybe not, second time maybe not, third time maybe not. Well, first time probably, So I think it's just letting go a little. I
yeah.
think that is probably what I did through my career as I kind of became more seasoned through it.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. So I'm curious, what do people get wrong about you? When they first meet you, they maybe make an assumption and then are like, you're not like that.
Well, I have a funny one on that one. One thing they get wrong is my height. Well, it's just funny because all through COVID, my teams, I didn't even meet some of them, and then they meet me and they were like, wait, you're short. So, I'm often told, okay, you carry yourself taller than you are. So that's one funny thing that people get wrong about me. And then, the stereotype, right? I mean, Indian family, we're like my math and science major. So being in the field of creativity and, knowing my design art background, I think people kind of don't expect that very often.
Yeah. I
Um,
have to say, I was surprised when I saw it. You went to FIT, right?
yes, I did. Yes, yes.
Like, how does that fit? Before I had a chance to ask you, you brought it up, but I was
Yeah,
surprised at that. I'm like, because in my mind, FIT, I went to more fashion design.
right,
Is
right.
that I had
Yeah,
friends who went there, so
yeah,
that's what I was thinking. But well, then when
yeah.
you explained it, it
Graphic
makes it's a
design.
good point.
Yeah.
But like you said, but it is as you have that business creative side, and I feel like, I mean, as chief growth, why am I having issues with saying growth? I think it's the growth is like the F and the growth together. And um, you must have to sort of, I mean, obviously there's a lot of business side there, but you also have to have that creative side to help with not only just dealing with the people within your organization, but just in your own mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because creativity to me, I always, tell my teams this too. There's the creative that sits in a department and does ads, but there's creativity in like just business problem solving, right? And like, how are we going to grow? Where are we going to grow? Which kind of clients are right for us? And what kind of offerings can we bring to the table that are credible for us, yet are in demand, So there's like creative problem solving and all of that. And then to your point about being able to understand that mindset of a creative individual, I think is extremely important in the marketing business or advertising or, any marketing firm. So it certainly helps me to have that. And, again, you always have to still remind yourself whose shoes you're in, I think, but it certainly helps that.
Yeah, totally. Well, all right. So I'm going back to talking about Strawberry Frog, but
Yeah.
sideway more. We're still going to you, but
Okay.
your mission is creating movement that mobilizes and engages people to help companies transform and grow. All right. So again, turning it to you, what has been one of the biggest transformations or changes you've gone through recently? And it could be in the past year or so, even, give or take. But tell me about that transformation, and did it in fact help you grow, or are you still kind of in the process of growing, or like talk about what
Yeah.
there.
I will say, I think I don't know if it's transformation, but it's probably like realization, right? So when most of my career has been agency side, as you know, working alongside CMOs and marketing teams and helping them with their growth agendas. And then when I moved in-house to lead a marketing team, that was actually more different than I expected it to be a little bit. Very similar in many ways, but there were some differences. So very similar in that you're kind of still using the same tools and talking about marketing. You're still collaborating with a cross-functional team, but it was different in that you actually went from being when you're sort of on sort of consulting side, the revenue driver and the product of the company into like functional area for the company and being more of a specialist. But then also you're brought in, I was brought in to create some change. I think that to me was the bigger learning in terms of how on the agency side you find people are just naturally bind around great work and making innovative things happen. You kind of have to find that a little bit more when you're on an sort of in-house team in terms of like what unifies you together. So defining that vision and North Star, I think, was even more important. Obviously the company can have one, but how does that translate to your marketing team? I think that's an important piece. And then how do you actually take them on that change journey based on where they are? I think there's just more of a natural connective tissue I found in the agency side that was harder to find a little bit on, when you're on in-house marketing team. So really looking at sort of what I call audience-centric communications. We do that always, for our clients and for marketing, but applying that principle to change management. I think that was sort of a big learning for me, is like, how do you really sort of think about creating that change from where the person is to where they go and how they actually listen and adapt. So I don't want to say it was a transformation necessarily for me, but it was a big learning that's just making me change a little bit about how I sort of approach my own leadership style.
Well, and that can go into a lot of things, whether someone young starting out or changing careers or just change, not even changing careers, but changing into a new job. There's always a new what's the word way of thinking in any organization. Even if it could be the same, another ad agency, another CPG agency, another CPG agency. There's always that, what, again, you said what that um North Star is,
Yeah,
or what the politics are, or what's the
right.
how people are working together. So when
Yeah,
you enter that new position at a new company, how do you go into that? Like, what's the way, like, because you want to go in where they feel like we're glad we took her in. So she needs, you want to show your worth, but at the same point, you don't want to ruffle too many feathers. You want to like sort of observe. So how do
right.
you maneuver that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, I'm sure a lot of leaders do this, and number one is just listening, and number two is finding ways of building those relationships and bridges, I think, and actually giving that more time almost than the actual work itself. In some ways, like figuring out the work and the problems and what the solutions are is almost the easier part of it, but then working towards relationships and identifying like the different work styles. I think that's the job really. When you're a senior leader, I think that's like 80% of the job. And the team can do the rest. But I mean, of course, there's things you still have to do yourself too. But I think that is a big game changer for what will make you succeed or not succeed.
Yeah, no, and just as you said, sort of taking your time with the individual
Yeah,
people working with you, because each one works differently, and it's just as long as they're doing their job, I'm sure you give them leeway to do it the way they need to do it. And
right.
so, but it's really understanding that, and that can take some time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's up, sideways, downwards, right? It's like that whole picture essentially, getting a sense of that. And it's like, to your point, individual level. It doesn't work as, oh, this is juniors, this is peers, this is seniors. So really taking the time to assess that and understand that and then work towards it, I think.
Yeah,
The
but I
expectation
think
of,
even someone you going in as a leader, but even someone going in new, I think you can still hold true the same type of
right.
advice, saying,
Yeah,
okay, observe, see what's happening, but also you need to speak out, you need to show your voice to show value. But
yeah,
to a point, I think that you kind of have to trickle that in, I guess, or something.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You have to find the right points.
Yes, completely agree. Okay, so what's your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have a good, I have a very clear one for that. So this is something we've been doing, my daughter and I, staying in our PJs and watching episodes of Gossip Girl and having flaming hot Cheetos.
Okay, first of all, oh yeah, Gossip Girls is so fun. I love that because Gossip Girls is from what I don't even know when that was
I don't
from.
know, like 2006 maybe or 10, I'm not even sure. Yes.
So, but it's so fun because I actually this person I knew when I lived in Corona Del Mar, I always would run into him when he's walking his dog, and his granddaughter, because we started chatting, and and he knew that I was, in doing Hollywood events and things, and he
Yeah.
was just like, my granddaughter wants to know if you've met Lauren, whatever the lead, the
Like
mom
Living. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
in I can't remember, and I'm like the lead woman in it or something, one of the lead
Yeah.
women. And I'm like, yeah, I just interviewed her or whatever, or like not just, but it was like a little bit back, and that was the most exciting thing to this girl who is, I'm sure,
Yeah.
your daughter's age. She's just in junior high or something like that. So I just think it's funny how these old shows are.
Totally.
So,
Yes.
but I have to ask, what are flaming Fritos?
Oh, flaming hot Cheetos.
Oh, Cheetos. Okay, Cheetos. What? Oh, so those are like, that's the flavor. So I'm assuming they're
The
very.
flavor. Yes, it's a spicy flavor. I'm a big, spicy food lover, and I guess my daughter's acquiring that taste too. So, we both have like things to do sometimes on the weekend, and we're like, let's just watch one more episode, or let's finish this piece of work, and then we can treat ourselves to another episode. And it's also became a way for us to like spend time together as she's growing up. They don't talk as much as so it's just a way of creating that space and openness, and a collective sort of guilty pleasure together.
That's awesome. Were you a fan when it was on
Oh,
originally?
yes, absolutely. Yes.
That's how your daughter heard about it, or did she hear about it separately?
No, She heard about it separately because all these shows, Friends is so popular with like Gen Z, Gen Alpha now, I guess. Yeah, so she brought it up, and at first I was like, I don't know if you're ready for this, and then we finally decided, let's just do this together, and we can open up a whole other way of like talking about things if needed.
Yeah, all the challenges that they face, then that can then be
Exactly.
an easy segue for you guys to talk
Yes,
about.
exactly.
That's awesome. All right, very cool. Okay, well, I'm going back to your
Strawberry Frog.
Strawberry Frog. Thank you.
Yes.
You guys do a guide to modern movements. Okay, and so this is really about sharing trends and
Yep.
helping people that way, helping organizations or people. And one example of a trend that was recently released from you guys was 39% working Americans report having a side hustle.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a lot of people actually. I think it said that it was like 80 million people, something
Yeah.
amounts to.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of side hustles. So I'm just curious, do you have a side hustle, or perhaps you don't have time right now? So if when you do, what would that side hustle be?
Yeah, yeah. I will answer that in a second. I just quickly wanted to explain a little bit about that movement guide, if that's okay. So, one of the things we do at Strawberry Frog is called movement thinking, and it's how we make brands relevant in culture, essentially. And what we do is look at ideas in the rise in culture and try to connect the brand to it. So, traditional advertising is all about competitive and your product. And what we try to do is take the brand out of category norms and into culture and make the brand more inclusive and participatory. So in doing that, we're always looking for cultural trends. What's happening now? What was happening, 10 years ago in culture, and what was happening, 15 years ago. So to your point, in this guide, there was three things we saw. Number one, a whole uprising around women, right? I mean, we've seen with Taylor Swift, Caitlin Clark, with the Olympics, like just the female empowerment and how much of a center point that is. I think we felt that's an opportunity for brands to be a voice in that. The second one is this movement towards, more in real life experiences. So IRL, after the pandemic, people are now looking at more dumb phones, actually. I think smartphone sales were down 18%. And we saw more people going to libraries. So ways of convening in real life, which gives brands another sort of way of being more experiential, or creating those experiences or communities for people. And the third one, which we would use, you mentioned Side Hustle Nation. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much, I think the pandemic just sort of let people have this creative outlet. And that's what people are looking for, either a way of making money to manage inflation or also creative outlets.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, in terms of me and side hustle, I don't actually have one. I wish I had one, but I've had an idea for a long time. And going back to my entrepreneurial sort of mindset and spirit, I've always wanted to have a restaurant which would be about street food in India. You see that a lot when it comes to Mexican food in America. You don't really see that a lot here, in New York around Indian food. So I think if and when I get the time and the bandwidth, I would want to do a more sort of street food style Indian restaurant that, can make that more popular here, just like it's in London.
Would you want an actual restaurant? Would it be more of a pop-up, or would it actually be
Maybe a
one of
food truck, or
the
maybe a food truck.
food truck? Like, and then you could just drive into the different neighborhoods.
Exactly. Exactly.
I have some friends who would be following you around for sure. So I'm not a spicy girl, so uh,
Okay.
Indian is tough for me. I have to admit that. But I have friends who are always like, "Oh, good, Lisa's not coming. We can go get Indian food." So they'll be all following you
Yeah,
and
but see, that's a misnomer too. Like, all Indian food is not spicy. So I think there's just myths around that I would love to bust a little bit and, just
well,
bring.
okay, so yes, I'm just hard. Like I was a very picky eater, and some
Yeah.
people probably still accuse me of that. But I've definitely gotten out of my comfort zone and trying things. But it hasn't. Actually, though, there was one place in California where I would take my friend's daughter to get yogurt, and there was an Indian restaurant, and it always smelled delicious. That was the
Uh-huh.
Normally I didn't. I think I don't like the smell of curry. So I never really liked the smell, but this Indian restaurant, I was tempted to go taste it. So to go into
Okay.
so maybe,
Okay.
maybe I
Okay.
would be a convert.
Yes, yes. I'm gonna make you try if we ever have a chance to meet in the city, something called kati rolls. These, these little stuffed Indian bread, very delicious. You can get them spicy, not spicy, but that I think those kinds of foods is what I'm thinking, not what you typically get at a
Okay.
restaurant.
All right. Well, I will keep an open mind.
Maybe in the future, Lisa.
For sure. So when I'm in the city sometime, I'll let you know. And
Okay.
when I'm feeling ambitious and ready to take a risk, then
Yes.
I'll give you a call. All right. I have just one last question I want to ask. We talk about big goals and what we want,
Yeah.
for your career or for the world or for whatever it may be. But every day we also have little goals that we want to achieve. On a personal level, what is that goal for you?
It's about balance. I think, again, I'm a mom of three kids and, a career that's pretty nicely full in some ways, so I'm always striving for balance, and if I feel like I've had a good balanced day where I am able to find time for both things and also like live in the moment yet think of the future, I think it's just that to me is the daily win. There's always saying it is easier than executing it every day.
Yeah.
uh, and when I manage to have a fulfilling day, which includes all those aspects of my life, I think that feels like a win to me.
Oh, well, it sounds like it would be a good day. But I'm curious, do you get balance a lot, or is it maybe what like each day has its own, like maybe it's this and then it's that, or like how do you how do you really define, I guess, balance?
Yeah, it is like that, absolutely. But I think the totality of the day or the week is rather what I try to look at. It's it's like the Weight Watchers diet, right? Where you have a point system and one day's up and one day's down. But as far as the totality of that feels somewhat balanced,
Yes, you did good.
that's what
You
I try to go.
didn't
That's
go
what I
up
try.
or you went
No, no, no
going
days the same.
going back to the Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
So, well, Rasika, thank you so much. This was really nice to talk with you and get to know you and be thinking differently about Indian food, perhaps.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to chatting with you soon, Lisa.
For sure. And I want to thank you for watching. And please, if you have anyone that you'd like for me to pull back the curtain on, just let me know. Email me at lisa@mediapost.com and I will do my best to get her. So thanks again. And thanks, Rasika.
Thank you.